everybody, it's Ingrid from Twinkl, and today I'm talking about story openings and writing that first line in a piece of creative writing. To go through this, we're going to look at this story openings PowerPoint by Twinkl. Before we dive into some examples, let's talk about why the opening line of a story is important. If a reader starts reading a book but isn't immediately drawn into the story, they may lose interest and pick up something else instead. Because of this, the most important few lines of a piece of writing are the first ones. They can also be the hardest to write, as it's often difficult to decide the best place to start. Let's take a look at some examples of story openings and suggestions of ways to approach that first line. You could open by describing a character, particularly if there's something interesting about them. For example, Mr. Stink stank, he also stunk. This quirky bit of alliteration is also kind of fun. You could start by describing a setting, especially if there's something interesting about it, or something that makes the reader ask questions. There was once a gaggle of mountains, tall and proud, each with a hat of snow. You could also do both of these by describing a character and setting. Like in this line, 1,000 miles ago, in a country east of the jungle and south of the mountains, there lived a firework maker called Lulchand. The way this is phrased is also quite fun because it's kind of descriptive, making you imagine jungles and mountains, but also vague, which gives it a bit of a fantasy feel, like it's somewhere that's not quite real. You could also open with a piece of dialogue. This usually brings us right into a conversation and can help us get a feeling for the relationship between characters right from the beginning. For example, "Molly," Maria shouted to her sister, "would you please shut that window?" You can also start with an action or a statement that makes us curious. Let's look at this example. Jessie was always finding bones in the great bog oak field where they dug the peat for the winter fires. This is interesting because it raises questions, like why are there bones there, and who did they belong to? You can also start with a rhetorical question, like this line. Ever had the feeling your life's been flushed down the toilet? And finally, stories can begin with a statement. In fairy tales, witches always wear silly black hats and black cloaks, and they ride on broomsticks. This line is clear enough, but since the writer specified that that's what witches wear and ride in fairy tales, it makes us think that witches may look different in this world, and wonder how that is. And that's our story openings PowerPoint by Twinkl. If you'd like to download this resource, it's available via the Twinkl website. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely day.